Unfortunately, this is one of those videos I didn't plan on making, and not for the best reasons. As I'm sure everyone's heard, a few days ago, at the time of recording this on the 11th, a few days ago, we got word that Akira Toriyama has passed away at 68 years old from essentially a brain bleed, right? And the world is grieving heavily for obvious reasons. For those who know who Akira Toriyama is, what he meant to, I think, honestly, a couple generations at least, anime fans, manga fans, even other people who did what he did, other mangaka, other creators of different manga series and animators. We all know who Akira Toriyama is. He played a heavy role in a lot of our lives. But I don't want this to be a going out sad type of video. I want this to be a celebration of the influence that Akira Toriyama and his works, mainly the Dragon Ball series, has had on us, especially as Dragon Ball will continue and will be left in the hands of his protege Toritaro, whom Akira Toriyama has, of course, greenlit. He mentored him, helped him develop, and Toyotaro has independently done his own work on Dragon Ball. And generally speaking, if not, I think there's a general consensus that he's definitely ready to step into those very, very large shoes. So I want this to be a celebration of Akira Toriyama and his influence over the generations and of his ultimate work, Dragon Ball. So for those who don't know, Akira Toriyama was called a mangaka. If you know manga, they're like Japanese comic books essentially. A mangaka was a Japanese comic book artist, basically. Now, manga and comic books are drastically different, both in their themes, the way that they are drawn, you know, some of the concepts, how deep they can go into things, generally speaking. Comic books, while they definitely have gotten political, some comic book brands, especially if you look at Static Shock, Icon, things like that, they've always been very political, big on race, race relations, things like that. Anime and manga in general has touched on that in ways that are a bit less direct, or at least not always revolving around humans. And one example of that would be Beastars. And because of that, those are the type of deep and gritty topics that a lot of people love anime for. They can be very philosophical. They can be, you know, mirrored to your face type of thing, both as an individual, as a society, humans all over. You can take a lot away from anime slash manga, and that's why a lot of us grew up loving it, even though we probably weren't able to be open about it at the time. For most of us, at least, I know I wasn't. But when it came to Dragon Ball was different. It's not that it didn't leave an influence. It wasn't that it wasn't important. It wasn't that it didn't, you know, test your character or make you want to be a better person. It was more so that it didn't make it a point to do that. It wasn't so inorganic. It wasn't quite as in your face. Not to say that for those manga and anime that did that, they were inherently bad. It's a matter of execution. But what was really impressive and continues to be impressive about the Dragon Ball series as it continues is it didn't mean to do that, but it continues to do that to this day. And it's been around since the 80s. Now, if you're like me, you're a millennial, I'm in my late 20s, we were born watching Dragon Ball. It's part of our DNA at this point. It's like you can't not know what Dragon Ball is. Even those people who aren't anime fans, who aren't manga fans, they know about Dragon Ball. They just know the name. They know about the crazy golden spiky hair, what I'm saying, the Kamehameha, this weird kid with a tail or grown man with a tail that can turn into a giant monkey for whatever reason, right? Um, People know of those things even if they've never actually watched it, you know? And I would say one of the best things that Akira did when it came to creating Dragon Ball. Now, granted, Dragon Ball was supposed to stop at multiple iterations, but I'm glad that he ultimately pushed it as far as he has, because the main character, Goku, or Kakarot by his Saiyan name, we've been able to see his entire story from this kid that initially we thought was human. He was weird, he was an idiot, but he was a gifted genius martial artist, very simple minded, loved to laugh, loved to eat inhumane amounts of food. Wasn't very book smart, but when it came to fighting, unmatched. And we've seen his growth from that kind of dorky but impressive and lovable kid who was adopted by his grandfather, even though he lost his grandfather right after that. For those who know, you know why. We saw that kid go to becoming the defender of not only the earth, of his world, as far as the world he considers his home, but as of Super, more or less the main guardian, or if not the strongest guardian of his respective universe, with a grandchild of his own. And we've seen this whole journey pan out. We always wonder, why is he able to do crazy stuff like swim across an entire ocean from one side of the planet to another? It doesn't make sense. And then we later find out the dude was basically an alien. He's just an alien that looks completely human, right? He's a Saiyan that was raised on Earth. And once we got into Dragon Ball Z, this was after he grew up, he got married, he had Gohan, his first son, whom he named after his grandfather. And that's when we went from Dragon Ball, the original Dragon Ball series, to Dragon Ball Z. And I believe that Dragon Ball Z is the most popular and most influential segment of Dragon Ball. As Dragon Ball continues to go, it will continue to be influential, but I don't think anything is topping Dragon Ball Z. And the number one reason, the most obvious reason, the introduction of the Super Saiyan or Super Saiyajin transformation, which without a doubt and has been proven is still the most popular transformation to have ever existed in anime. In fact, transformations are so common in anime now. I don't know, I think most people know, but the new generation don't know. Dragon Ball is pretty much the progenitor of that. In the way that we know it, Dragon Ball is the number one influence of that. Dragon Ball, let me rewind even. Dragon Ball is not the first anime. There were anime that preceded Dragon Ball. Like at the same time, growing up for me, you had Sailor Moon, you had Yu Yu Hakusho, you had Inuyasha, you had Fist of the North Star. I wasn't watching it as a kid, but apparently Berserk was around at the time. But that was something else. Some people apparently saw Berserk growing up, like as kids. And I'm like, yeah, something was a little, I don't know, you had a little too much access there, buddy. But there were other anime, Gundam, Pokemon being another cornerstone of mine. There were other anime that was there, and some of them we were able to see in the States. Dragon Ball was not the first anime by a long shot, but it is without a doubt, at least arguably, but in my opinion, without a doubt, the number one reason why anime has been able to break so much into the West the way it has. We probably, as Westerners, support anime just as much, if not more, than Easterners do, primarily Japanese, since anime is initially a creation of Japan. That's why so many anime, they take place in a setting of Japan, or a setting that somehow relates to Japan, because it's the homeland of all anime. It was Dragon Ball, therefore Akira Toriyama, who broke that gate open. And while some of those other anime were already there, or they also assisted with that, it was really Dragon Ball that really burst that bubble. And now you have so many anime that openly reference Dragon Ball, openly reference Akira Toriyama. They reference a Kamehameha. They have the transformation trope, which to this day, I know there's mixed feelings about transformations in Dragon Ball, but it started with the greatest transformation of all time. Like, I can't tell you how many times everyone has admitted it's no shame at this point. Like, growing up, we couldn't say it. Like, you would be teased if people knew that even private at home or whatever, you try to go Super Saiyan, or if you ask, hey man, would you go Super Saiyan if you could? Like, heck yeah, you would get teased. Now it's a thing of, who the heck has not tried to go Super Saiyan? Who has not tried to do Kamehameha? Who has not done the spirit bomb stance thinking you're actually going to pull some energy from nature and from the earth and from living beings all over the place? You know what I mean? Who has not tried to do that? Who has not tried to recreate the classic Goku Vegeta stance from the first time they fought when they were full blown enemies, and that they recreated at the end of Super as brothers. Not just friends and fighting partners and training partners, but they're basically brothers at this point. For real. Who has not tried to do these things and sometimes still does? Who has not assumed like the final Flash pose, especially the way Vegeta did it against Jiren, but just in general, who has not tried to do that? Who has not done the Big Bang Attack hand sign? Who has not done all these things? One of my favorite things I used to try to do as a kid was when Future Trunks initially into showed up on Earth after the Namek saga and Goku was still away, and he was waiting for Goku to come back, but Mecha Frieza and King Cold had showed up with the army, and Future Trunks just decimated all of them. The sword slash thing that he did when he sliced and diced Mecha Frieza and then blasted him. I tried that as a kid so many times. I had a toy sword growing up where I could do that. I had so many toys from anime. I think I had like, it was like a He-Man sword, I think, and I tried to recreate it with that. I would rewatch because I had a good amount of Dragon Ball Z movies on tape thanks to my mom, and she or rather when I would watch those movies and I rewind them and you see the trailers or like the commercials before it gets into the actual thing, I was rewatching the trailers like a mug before I even got to the actual movie. Like again with Super Saiyan with Goku was already so just amazing. But then if I saw the trailer with Trunks when he was kind of like going Super Saiyan and he was dripped out, he had the jean jacket, the cool sneakers, the boots or whatever, the pant, his whole appearance was just fire. And then he went Super Saiyan, so now his hair is all flowy, got the gold aura. It looks a little bit different than Goku. He looked like he's on fire. It's just like, and you just assume the poses. You just stand there trying to look and feel as cool as these characters. And this is before the actual movie or whatever, the Garlic Jr. saga episodes. That is before even all that even kicks on, right? And this is considered, I guess you can consider it early days or maybe mid days for Dragon Ball in its entirety. And it still has done killer stuff after that when it went into the Cell saga, when, now being in Super, and now we're about to go into Daima, which I personally wasn't really, I didn't know how I felt about Daima. I really was not crazy about watching it. Knowing me, I would have ended up watching it anyway, but now it's like I have to watch it. Like this is probably the last project that Toriyama saw either to completion or close to completion prior to his passing. You know what I'm saying? But all that to say, Toriyama, his work literally shaped the way weirdos and nerds like me think or thought as kids and what we tried to emulate. Probably to the point we got in trouble because I would mix up reality and real life, or reality and fantasy way too much, trying to pretend to be Goku, trying to be, if we would play fight with other kids, primarily other guys, and this and that, I would take it way too seriously. I would get in trouble for that, you know, because like no, I'm Goku, no, I'm Goku, and then you just go at it and you're sparring this and that, but then you kick it up a notch because it's like I'm really trying to, you know, like you want to embody Goku, you want to embody everything he stood for, you want to embody everything he represented, you want to embody everything that made him cool. But the thing that made Goku and even Vegeta and Krillin and Yamcha, but especially Goku, cool wasn't purely just how powerful they were and the martial arts and all that stuff. It was also some of the rhetoric that came from it. And this is why I think Dragon Ball really excels when it comes to influencing people, but it doesn't come across as force feeding. Goku himself says in Super when he ended up fighting Jiren and going MUI for the first time that he does not recognize himself as some type of hero or protector of the galaxy. He literally likes to fight for the sake of fighting, but he still has his morals of you will not cross the people and hurt the people that I love and care for. That's when you're really going to have a problem. So we have this one guy, this kid who, again, lovable, considered not all that, intelligent, and well, at least prior to Super. But even then, Goku's intelligence related more to fighting than anything. So, you still have the argument there, but You had this kid that just he kicked off the stereotype of shonen MCs that end up becoming overpowered. They reach their goals. They become staples in the anime community. Everyone loves them, but they're not that bright. Like Goku kind of kicked that off. The whole like I'm not that bright, but I work hard. Nothing will stop me. I eat insane amounts of food. I'm naturally gifted, and even if I'm not naturally gifted, which you can argue that Goku was not naturally gifted, at least not by Saiyan standards, by human standards, he was naturally gifted. But even then, at one point, he was so weak that humans were still a pretty big threat to him. Now, most humans, but no real human can really touch him like that. He's in the realm of deities now. But, you know, he is the main, like, inspiration for that shonen MC template. Just not all that much going on upstairs, but they know how to fight. They're usually gifted one way or another. They're either over gifted or under gifted. There's really no sweet spot, and they have a strong moral compass that they usually do not break from. And they're not the type usually to get crazy mad off rip. But the one thing that they all usually have in common, if you mess with my friends, it's done. It's a wrap. Nothing can save you at that point. Dragon Ball as a series, Goku as an MC, Vegeta as a, I guess you can say, deuteragonist, if you will. Yeah, their power, the transformations, the martial arts, and just beating the heck out of people, having some of the most like unapologetically just kick butt moments of all of anime and all of fiction, I would say. That was only part of it. The other part of it was how did it influence you to be a better person and be the best you possible, whether you had everything you needed or whether you didn't have enough of it, right? And Goku was one of those stories where, depending on how you look at it by the bigger scale and where things have gone, he was nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like he there's no reason he and Vegeta should even be in the same bracket in terms of power. And yet Goku, even when they fought, he was still massively weaker than Vegeta. But through sheer determination and willing to sacrifice himself for the betterment of other people, he managed to best Vegeta in their first fight. You can even say, if you're being super technical, you can call it a draw, but most people consider it a win, either philosophically or both philosophically and physically. But then pretty much every single time after that, they've been just dancing, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And if you know Vegeta's character, then that only takes it to another level. You know, genuinely understanding the enemy that they had in common, the influence that that one enemy, Frieza, has had on both of them, but in different ways, in the ways that they react to the same type of situations without much effort. If anything, you kind of have to look forward to a degree, but without much effort, it makes you wonder about the dichotomy of people in general who can, in a version, experience the same things or deal with the consequences of a situation that was caused by a single person or a single entity, but their paths were different and therefore they have to deal with it differently. But it makes you wonder, were either of them wrong about it? Is there even a genuine philosophical fight here? You know, it really makes you think about those type of things. And through that, a lot of us have tried to act in accordance with, the principles that Toriyama would share through his work through primarily Goku. And you can even say to an extension Gohan when he was actually being groomed to take over the series, but of course that didn't end up happening. This is someone who through his work, I tried to model myself after a fictional character, try to behave in a certain type of way. My parents would sometimes come into the room and be like, what the heck is going on here? And I'm playing it off like I'm not doing anything, but playing around, messing, trying to pretend to be Goku and this and that, and they're trying to sleep or do whatever. I never try to embody and copy and mimic so much stuff from a single place in my life to the point where I still do it fairly regularly to this day, and I'm almost 30. Through and through. It sucks, especially because he still was working. He was 68, and anything, if you know about mangakas and their schedules and their health issues are very prevalent for their line of work. So in a version, I'm glad he can rest and leave this tumultuous world and this lifestyle and the hectic work schedule and health issues of, him being him behind. But man, you had so much further to go. You had so much further to go, and it really sucks that while Dragon Ball in particular will carry on, his influence will carry on, and the influence of his work will carry on, he will not be here to see the results anymore. But when you have been doing what he's been doing since early mid 80s, I believe, up to now, as far, and we're not even including Dr. Slump, which was his big work that came before Dragon Ball that allowed him to make Dragon Ball afterwards. So we're talking 40 plus years of a legacy here that is still going strong, that has transcended at this point 3 generations, I want to say, at least. That's it, guys. Just wanted to celebrate Akira Toriyama one more time and just paint the picture of his influence on us and other people, other manga series. How you feeling about it, how you taking it. Are you looking forward to Daima? Are you looking forward to the other projects that he had in the works? What are you guys looking forward to? I'm curious. But I'll leave it right there, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Later.